Just a slight tangent on that.
This is far too much of a tangent. Just a brief interruption.
Can I also say one more thing on this?
But we also need to impose some rules. Like, we can't just have 20-minute tangents over a text.
Come on, that's just refusal to consider the circumstances. We're not going to entertain that, Joe.
This conversation is not a good one, I think. Do we argue much?
No, we keep them inside.
Let it fester.
See, I thought this was a ridiculous text until I read the top three, and then I thought, do you know what? I'd actually debate that with you. It is an interesting... Sorry, it's not an interesting question, but...
Let's make that clear.
I love the sound of a snooker referee counting up the score.
Welcome along, Slight Tangent coming at you. These are exciting times because Michael, as ever, is to my left. Hello.
Not that exciting.
Will O'Callaghan, hello to you.
Hello, fellow Tangenteers.
And back by demand is Ronan Mullen. Woo.
Yeah,
exciting.
Inundated with text, Joe. Literally, the phone's been buzzing, and I just had to say yes.
You made that joke off air. I didn't think you were going to do it again.
I didn't think you were going to call me out on it, so here we are.
I laughed twice.
Arthur's on holidays. He's in... Can we say?
I think so, yeah. Well,
You can now. You
Naples.
already said-
you won't hear it.
He's in Naples.
He's a bandwagoner.
Oof.
Just because they're running away with the league, he thought,
Not even watching football.
let's get on board.
He's
Wow.
just enjoying Naples.
He likes other things too, apparently.
Beautiful city, Naples.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm only interested in sport myself.
I'm basing that on Liam Brady's documentary.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been.
I was sure you were about to give us first-hand experience there. And
No.
say, I've been to Naples, beautiful
No.
place,
Been
prefer
to
to
Rome.
Rome.
That's about the height of it. So a slight tangent at offtheball.com. If you're just tuning in for the first time, this is where the OTB team picked through stories which caught our eye across the week. And there are, of course, emails to get through, which we tend to do at the start. Hello, Joe and co. Fair. Long-time OTB listener, and over that time I couldn't help but notice that OTB hosts and panellists have a tendency to use certain turns of phrase repeatedly. I'm curious to know, and to hear you all discuss, whether these turns of phrase have been intentionally adopted through tried and tested experience to help steer on-air conversations, or whether you've been completely oblivious to them. Unwittingly, they've weaved their way into your vernacular over time. And then he picks out me. For instance, Joe, I would put it to you, he has those two in block capitals, that you in particular use these two trusty turns of phrase in almost every show and interview. Oh, no. Any favourites from your peers? Any that you can't stand to hear others use? Tangent away. Love the show, Rory and Cork. But importantly, from Donegal. Would you strike would you put for instance, or I would put it to you as closely associated with me? These, if they're in my vernacular, I can see how I might have used them from time to time, but they have, to use Rory's phrase, these have unwittingly weaved their way into my vernacular. If I'm using them in every interview, I hadn't realised.
I would put it to you. It's very The Week in Politics.
Very.
It's like, I would put it to you, Minister. So I don't know in what context you're bringing this. I would put it to you, Mick, in the news round
I put it to you,
on
Graham.
story number 3.
Yeah. I really don't think I use that
Yeah,
phrase.
I'm not
Rory.
sure about that one.
I can hear it though. I don't think it's one of your go-tos, but I can hear it. I can hear it coming out of your voice.
He says every show and interview.
Not sure about that.
Definitely not.
I would
think
put it to you.
I'd
I
like to
don't.
think the three of us would know, but then again, how good are we at our jobs?
For instance, is such a vague.
Yeah.
Sure, you have to say, for instance.
Like I use lots of words a lot. You know, like the.
To his question as to whether these
That
are...
one of your phrases.
To his question.
I think it might be actually.
To his question.
Me trying to get things back on track generally is sort of why I bring that up. But to his question about whether these things are planned, I kind of like... I sort of find it hilarious that, that people think sometimes that a lot more goes into this than it actually does. I don't know, for me anyway, like anything that I have that's repetitive, and there are a few, but I don't even want to say them out loud, but I hear them back and it's the opposite of something that's planned. It's cringe, it's a tick that comes out of your mouth in a way that you don't want it to, especially when you're trying to broadcast, you're trying to do it properly, but there are plenty of things that I think everybody has, but I know what mine are, that come out of my mouth almost completely without meaning, like is it at the end of sentences that you don't mean to say.
Go on, hit me. What's yours? Come on.
You'll hear them plenty now.
No,
I'm
you see, that's the
obviously
thing.
thinking about it now, so I'm not going to say them.
Come on,
Yeah.
hit me. Give us your one that we can look out for.
I'll tell you one I always do. I will make my point, I'll probably have 2 examples, and instead of just putting a full stop, I will say, or whatever else it might be.
That's okay.
It is, but it is one, and I hear it all the time. It's not that there's a problem with it. It's just that the idea that it's planned into my style of broadcasting is kind of ludicrous.
It's not like, I think what Rory's wondering there is like, are there certain phrases that you're almost using to buy time or to fill? And there are those too.
Yeah.
But I suppose we're more thinking about those phrases that we overuse without our knowledge.
I think if anything, Joe, you're trying to take those verbal crutches out as opposed to adding them to your arsenal.
Oh, big time.
If there's anything you think that you're consciously using a lot, you try and rotate them back out.
Big time. I would listen back to myself quite a bit purely to just catch the
Sunday
repetitive
pay-per-view, enjoy it.
habits. Just to luxuriate in myself. Yeah. Ronan,
There's everyday connective terms in everyday conversation that you possibly don't want to take out of the conversational notion of radio, if you get me. Like M's and Am's and kind of, sort of, those kinds of things. Like if you took them out and just were very, I don't know, maybe it would sound unnatural or something, but I do often find myself, and I'm going to do it plenty tonight here probably, those little connective terms.
yeah.
And
Without them, everything sounds like a polished monologue, which seems like you've almost either pre-prepared it before you go on or something that you've written out.
But with them, as Ronan said, you listen back to yourself and you think, oh, don't,
not again.
Jeez, kind of, sort of. Ugh.
3 times in one answer.
Yeah.
Come on, this is outrageous.
Next email. Hey Joe, Mick said it was difficult to cut down the Liam Hayes interview. Aidan, your colleague, said the same for Padraig Harrington. They seem to be 2 of the most thoughtful interviewees. Who else would you put in that bracket? If you were to have a 4-ball or dinner party of absorbing guests, who would they be? The type of person, says Richard here, the type of person who would have everybody else in pensive silence. Not the greatest sounding dinner party of all time.
I love the way you threw 4-ball in there just to win your good graces.
Make sure you read the email.
Tiger Woods.
There's got an automation, or Joe. That's the second time in 2 days. My God.
Jordan Spieth
And
and
his outlook to find golf terms, make sure it brings it to his attention.
He secondly asked the question, if I'm ever asked, I struggle with massively. While thinking about that, says Richard, almost on a tangent of his own here, who's the best person you've ever interviewed? Like, I don't know.
best person.
Best person.
From what point of view? Like,
Yeah, I was going to say.
like in terms of what they brought to the interview, or the most wholesome person?
The best person.
I can't speak to their personal life.
Because we've had some great people on the show, Joe. You know,
Who are the best interviewees?
stand-up people. It's a tough question.
Such a hard one.
It's a tough question.
Because you're staring at a blank wall, because you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of try not to forget everybody that you've spoken to.
Like with that, you're almost by dint of how the question's framed, you're reaching for maybe one-off interviews. But I'm just using him as example. Andy Dunn, you're always delighted because he'll bring something new to each
I don't
conversation.
class that as an interview.
No, but it's more like interviews. I suppose guests is probably more where he falls in at this stage. But as one-off guests,
I've nobody I can think of.
Liam Hayes last week was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a bit of a recency bias there, Michael.
Keith Earls.
Yeah, good.
I thought that interview was great.
Yeah, he's good. He's always good, though. I think you got to do more than one good interview to pass the bar there, don't you?
So you think someone could do one good autobiography interview, tell a really
Yeah,
good story
just-
about their life?
I suppose Padraig Harrington's good no matter what. Yeah. He was good 15 years ago. He's good now. Thoughtful.
I think as a rule, individual sports people are generally better.
Boxers are good.
Yeah,
Andy Lee was always very good.
always.
Anything about his career was good.
Yeah, Eric Donovan.
Eric Donovan.
Is that because individuals need to sell themselves, while I think team athletes often have to play everything down because they're concerned about what they say?
I think that could be a case. What just jumped to mind with me is that they're solitary people or athletes that spend a lot of time on their own, which means that they probably spend a lot more time thinking about what they're doing than, Jack Grealish
Yeah.
at Man City running around with the group and playing practical jokes while he's doing his intense and, top level training.
I'd also be wary of hard and fast rule. Most boxers are rubbish too.
Go on, Ronan. Jump to the defence of your
Most
sport
sports
here.
people are rubbish interviewees.
Well, yeah, that's true. I think just as a subset, I think it's fair. You're always going to get, to Will's point, somewhat more unfiltered from someone who's looking after their own devices.
True. They don't have a dressing room to betray. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, Andy Lee's actually a prime example whereby, like, world champion, but he's not in the very top 0.01%, like, the greatest boxers of all time, and yet his story, like his book, in terms of sporting autobiographies, this feels like a Christmas Eve conversation, but it's one of the best sports books written in the last 10 years, certainly. And like just the details that spin off his career, which was like unquestionably successful, it's just remarkable, like the personal stories and whatnot. So I just think he doesn't have the same, I'm just using Andy as an example, doesn't have the same framework or hurdles to jump to get those stories through to the page, whereas other people probably have more considerations.
Speaking of good books, have you read the Prince Harry book yet? I can't find anybody to talk about it with.
Oh, here, I
heard the audio clip.
It's good.
On the Hard Shoulder
It was
47.
good.
It's really good.
In a page turner kind of way, because you don't know where it's going next. Or is it like a good
I have a
book?
fair idea how it turned out for him.
No, every story's madder than the last.
No, I just thought it was brilliantly done. Have you read it?
I took the audio book because I had the token on Audible.
Yeah.
And free plug for Audible. And his voice, I just can't.
I can imagine.
I just can't.
What drew you to it, Joe? Because there was so much Harry between the Netflix, between the interviews. It just felt like it was Harry Mania at the time the book came out. I just couldn't take more. Prince
Should have
Harry.
called the book that. Harry Mania.
Harry Mania,
Much
running
better
wild.
title.
J.R. Moehringer drew me to it.
Okay.
Brilliant ghostwriter.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give him a chance, and it's worth giving him a chance because he takes a fairly unlikable-ish story and turns it into something very compelling. Anyway, I'll press on. Last email for the time being, and then we're getting into the topics we wanted to discuss. Hi, lads. Enjoy your musings from across the Irish Sea. On your discussion about commentators' cliches, any thoughts on describing a footballer as an honest pro? I can't work it out. Is this to distinguish him, it is usually a him, from his more dishonest peers, or is it because the commentator simply can't identify another attribute? Keep up the great work and may you reach a 4 or 5 Pete, says Tony. We're currently on 2 slight tangents in a row, so we're looking for the 3 Pete
It's a
soon.
long way away.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one I mentioned on the news round is character. It's my big bugbearer. I was saying to Mick, there hasn't been a sliotar caught in 20 years that wasn't down to character, and it's just nonsense. I mean, it really is nonsense.
Does
Character.
character come into sport at all, Joe?
Yes, of course it does.
Yeah.
But
Does
it
it
just
come
can't
into
be.
sporting achievements,
Yeah, no, of course it does.
sporting feats.
But it's an overused. Oh, it's what character? Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like
But
the
don't-
ball happened to bounce someone's way and they cleared it.
But like, take Lissandro Martinez, for example, off the performance at the weekend, the whole he'd put his head where other people wouldn't put their foot.
Yeah.
Is that not reflective of his character?
Yeah, no, it is.
So is someone like diving for a loose ball in hurling not similar?
Put in your head where someone wouldn't put their foot.
As in, like, trying, like, from what point are you talking about like a high, like
He's
a
putting his
high
ball-
fielding kind of thing?
Sometimes someone just catches a ball in the
Okay,
air. And
I hear you.
Certain commentators will just scream, "What character?"
I thought you meant a hard fought, like,
no,
scrap on the ground.
Sometimes it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Am I wrong here?
No, I think it's fair enough. I think there's more than that. I think there's GEA cliches all over the place. We mentioned
Wanted it more.
Hunger and the
Wanted it more.
Yeah. Hunger and wanted it more.
I mean,
Sometimes
people-
they do want it more, Joe.
I know, but people have used "they wanted it more" analysis after All Ireland finals.
yeah, but well, it's not that like like you measure exactly how much one team wanted it more. I think there is that hard to measure how far will they go for something thing that, like, you know, are a team that have been there before or that don't really believe in themselves. You know, I think it should be slightly more complicated than wanted it more, but sometimes it can come down to that, you know, little bit extra effort.
Richie had a good one in the news round. He
Yeah.
was saying that the term foot race. What else are they racing on? Their hands. It had never occurred to me because I never mind a good old fashioned foot race. But now that you mention it, I'll never hear that phrase again.
That's tremendous.
On the character thing, though, it's like you do hear. I don't know if character is the right word for GA. It's funny. I don't associate that. I think a character. I think of like Roy Keane. You know, like that's his analysis of why Manchester United aren't any good.
Oh, yeah.
It's because they don't have any character and they don't have any leaders and
So it's a sub for
all of
mentality
this and.
No, I think he's getting to the heart. I just think with him, he just dislikes so many dressing rooms he came across, especially as a manager. But I mean, the fairly obvious point to make is that these players who had no character a year ago now seem to have lots of character. So maybe it was about something more than their character. But it's how do you dispute if someone says there's no character?
Yeah.
And yet the rising tide that lifted all boats in that instance, probably, if you take Casemiro as the example, is an abundance of character. So maybe there is an essence of it there, but
I'm not saying personality and character aren't important.
no.
But sometimes we deduce too much from a player catching a ball,
Yeah.
as
but
opposed to golfer handing someone a tampon. That would reveal character more than someone catching a ball.
Let's get back to this again. No, but I was agreeing with you. Like, I mean, but I'm just saying that I think it's in all sports. But like, there's people who kind of like whittle everything down to its most basic, in the way they understand the game. I think Keane is obviously one of them. It's something we've talked about before, that he just sees football on this almost basic level of, there's good pros and then there's people who aren't honest pros. Almost to the emailers.
The problem with cliches, there is grain of truth in them all. There's lots of text in on this issue. Most annoying sporting cliches. Drives me insane when commentators refer to a singular player as plural. Example, if talking about the Kerry forward line, they'll talk about the Shawnee O'Sheas and the David Cliffords.
That's fair.
There is only one Shawnee O'Shea and there's only one David Clifford. That's Billy driving back to Cork. Can't dispute that. Somebody agrees. It's the plurals of teams I hate. The Uniteds, the Liverpools, the Arsenals of the world. Of the world. Resports cliche. Really annoys me people turning adverbs into nouns, as in the boy's done brilliant, as opposed to brilliantly. And it should be he did brilliantly.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say there's two issues.
Don't want to correct you there, Jerry. Also, he gave 110%, says Jerry, the untidy psychiatrist.
Wow.
Can a psychiatrist be untidy? Suggestive of an untidy mind.
Hopefully not in the workplace.
Well, Joe, there's some amateur psychiatry / psychology.
Didn't have to go to college for that one, Jerry. Annoying sporting cliches. X Factor. Used to justify selection of any rugby player who can sidestep. Rugby IQ, also used within a particular abundance. Tyler Blindall played for Munster with rugby IQ, says Ian Cork. Well, I mean, the ultimate in rugby is the unseen work.
Oh, there's so much unseen work. so much unseen work that you don't see, Joe.
Oh my God. That was like, during the 90s, there wasn't an Irish match that unseen work wasn't pointed out.
There's a certain arrogance to the person pointing out the unseen work as well, isn't there?
Oh my God.
It's unseen by you, but not by me.
Big time.
I can see it.
Oh, it was dripping with arrogance. Quote, my personal opinion, lads, drives me nuts. Why would you bother with someone else's personal opinion, says Martin in Dublin 9.
Fair.
That certain distancing before you're going to say something that might well be
controversial.
Yeah.
Well, I do think, and it's crept in increasingly with the internet and angry football Twitter people, is any semi, not even controversial, critical point is often prefaced with,
I'm not saying this, but
the Liverpool fans are probably going to hate me, or blah, blah, blah. It's like it's so weak. Just say it. Don't appeal to them and their better nature. One, it's pointless, and you sound weak.
I was going to say the pointless part is actually quite important there, because it's not going to work.
No.
It's like
and never reveal you're playing devil's advocate if you are, because you give away there's a complete lack of sincerity.
Commit to
when
it.
you say that.
Yeah, totally. Last couple of texts. I urge that pockets of space and banks of four ought to be discontinued, says Scarlett. Pockets of space. I think that's okay.
Yeah. What do you think of a corridor of uncertainty?
Love it.
Yeah, me too. That's my
Can I
favourite
tell you a story about the corridor of uncertainty?
It's what this slot was born for.
Are you sure about this story now?
A good friend of mine, went to school with him. We were watching, I believe, the 2014 World Cup. And I can't remember the game, but we were watching it. I think I can remember the game. Oh, Costa Rica against someone. It was a knockout game anyway. And 0-0. And there was a great cross put in. And someone used the term corridor of uncertainty. And we were like talking about it. And then my friend goes, I always thought it was the car door of uncertainty, as in it's the width of a car door. We were like, that's one of those things that comes in. That's one of those things that comes into your head. It's like, oh, that's what it is.
And it makes sense.
I'm not going to admit it out loud.
Oh, yeah.
But he's always no filter.
About a car door of uncertainty.
It's a car door width,
Yeah.
I love how specific that was as well.
Yes. Yeah, so.
I always thought play it by year was play it by ear.
No,
Play it by
you've
year.
got it mixed up there.
Sorry, play it by I always thought play it by ear was play it by year. And again, there was a logic to it, as in, we'll play it by year, as in a period of time. So we'll just see as things transpire.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to think of what my one of them was, and I can't reach for it. I'm having a poor day so far.
A lot of people like an en route.
Oh yeah.
ON. They sit on that route. Yeah.
Yeah, always use the wrong way.
Last text or two. Mike, page turner is as inane a phrase as foot race. Page turner. Makes sense.
Yeah, I was only joking as well. Like,
Yeah.
Very specific term
Page
to
turner.
reading a book as well. You use it in a literal context. It would have been different if you use it for something else.
It's all right. And finally, Adon says, a wide is as good as a score at this stage. Total GAA bullshit. A wide is never as good as a score, ever. Okay.
no, the score's better.
Fair enough. But you know they
Kick
mean
the ball
it.
dead.
No,
yeah,
I
you know what they all mean, but like, that's
I heard it the weekend on a radio commentary as well. A 65 in this instance is as good as a score. You're like, no, it's not. You would much prefer to have the point on the board, turn around and defend the puck out and move on. It does not make any sense.
No, it's true. And finally, Connor, rugby commentators ranting and raving about players catching and kicking of a standard that GAA players, club players, would take for granted.
I thought that was going to be something else. I thought that was going to be every time a Irish rugby player catches the ball, it's because of their GAA background.
Yeah.
GA skills shining through.
Shane Horgan's GAA background because he could catch the ball. Nothing to do with the fact that he played on the wing for Ireland for 10 years.
I would say a lot of GAA players do look at the praise that rugby players get for kicking a ball out of hand and do think, like, are we kidding here? Like James Lowe, his left boot is hailed.
Yeah.
Is that because he's improved his kicking though as well?
Would your average GAA
I wouldn't say
player
there's
not be able to
I
kick
wouldn't
that
say there's
just
a
as well?
GAA player. There's not a GAA back in the country who can boot the ball 50 yards up the field.
Oh,
It's
maybe, okay.
not a part of the game anymore.
Maybe not 50 yards, but I think
Maybe
some
back
of
in the day they could.
I think some of these little crossfield kicks from Finn Russell and stuff
Oh,
that are
yeah.
15 meters, they're easy.
Yeah.
They're not even grand. They're easy. It's like a little punt pass in GAA and the cross kick.
I did think on Saturday that I would have done a better job at the crossfield kick than the Italian player, you know, when they had the try chance and he
But that
booted
was
it.
madness.
was-
He kicked that
that
about
was-
50 meters.
It was utter madness, but I was thinking I would have definitely done a better job than that. Like,
Do we all agree? Are you in agreement on that they overhyped the rugby cross kick from a 10 for a try?
Oh, it's there's an element of timing and trajectory that you have to get spot on. Are you talking about direct, like an assist for a try, essentially?
Yeah.
They are tricky now. If you're running,
I just think a GAA player would look at that and think, come on. It's like a punch from a half-back to a
it's
half-forward.
a little bit of a different skill, though, I would say. You're coming at it from a different angle also, typically. Like you're front-facing. It's obviously, there's a reason GAA players kick frees side on, because it's more difficult to kick them.
I think Marcus Smith started the Six Nations. Remember the little chip over for the try that he made, which was on the side of the foot, which was a particularly tricky skill. That's difficult to do when you've got a player bearing down you who's about to hit you with a tackle as well.
Fair enough. They were the emails. We got to move on. A short ad break, and there are some topics that we are frothing at the mouth to get into.
Off the ball on News Talk. Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now, you're welcome back. So let's get to a few bits and pieces. Oh, somebody was in touch to let us know 18 years ago today. 18 years ago. Just have a think for a minute. Where were you 18 years ago? It was 2005. I tell you where Delia Smith was. She was at Carrow Road. 20,000 fans against Man City. Their first season back in the Premier League since 1994. They're 5 points from safety. They were 2-0 up in this game. It's back to 2-2. It's half-time. Delia.
A message for the best football supporters in the world. We need a 12th man here. Where are you? Where are you? Let's be having you. Come on.
Oh, didn't go down great.
Didn't work.
Oh, yes, they lost 3-2 in the end.
Crucially.
Robbie Fowler scored a 90th minute winner. Delia's subsequent interview about the incident is, they just handed me the microphone and said, go on, do it. I had heels on. The pitch was muddy. It was hard to walk, so everybody thought I was drunk. End quote.
and nothing to do with the first sentence that she said there, where she called them fuzz of the ball fans.
There's a moment of shock in Carrow Road, and then there's a moment of, God. And they all...
That's one of those moments you instantly knew. I don't know where I'll be in 18 years from now, but I'll be hearing that again. That's not the first time last time I'm going to hear that.
It's it was like Premier League years written all over it. Like, you know, it's if they ever do a montage of the Premier League that is like of the entire history of it,
Yeah.
that is even as small as an hour long, I think that'll be it.
And part of it, which was so unsavoury, is that I think she's descending into a kind of football speak that is not her.
Yeah.
At like real cliches.
Savoury?
It's a touch
Maybe, I don't know.
classist.
Well, maybe what you're saying is, I think in general it was just hilarious. Like,
Sorry, it was absolutely hilarious.
old woman doesn't really kind of like understand what she's doing.
I'm going to speak to them in their language. Kind of a vibe about it, no?
I kind of love the fact there's a mustard magnate here going onto the pitch and is deciding to shout, "Come on." Because that clip is usually lost at the end of it. It usually stops with, it's used in montages. It tends to stop with, "Let's be having you." What's the visceral "come on" at the end of it as well?
See, I
It's
think
just so cringy.
when you watch it back, she is sensing that she has not won them over.
You got to give it a more.
So it's just a last gasp effort.
She actually, if you watch the video, just at the end after she does Will's "come on," she kind of gives back the mic to someone with a sort of a shake of the head, sort of a puppy dog. She kind of went, that didn't go too well.
Someone just gave me the mic and said, "Go on, Delia." Let's turn to the state of boxing. The purists, they're not happy. They're not happy. Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul at the weekend. In Saudi Arabia, naturally, there was a belt won by Tommy Fury. I don't know what was on the belt. Tommy being talked about as a legitimate boxer, even though at 23, this pair of 14 fights between them. So I wouldn't say he's been the most overly active boxer, but maybe there's issues I don't know about. And then Paul, a YouTube star, turned pro in 2020 and has mainly fought fellow YouTubers, MMA fighters, basketballers, and more. I'm giving the big. I'm sure lots of you are very aware who Jake Paul is, but lots of you not. Jake Paul has about 22 million Instagram followers. Every time he pops up on my phone on Instagram Reels or something, it's
on your
him.
Nokia.
Yes, talking about how much money he has. Seems to have made an extraordinary amount of money. And this fight is the death knell of boxing, so to speak. I don't think Will, Mick or I paid the $29.99 pay-per-view to watch this. You did watch this, Ronan.
I watched some of it. I was certainly not going to pay for it either. It's an interesting one. Like, not that this is an arbiter of how I judge the sport in general, but a lot of people that don't follow boxing were asking me about this. So that's kind of an indicator that it captured the imagination.
Should we have run it on the sports bulletins on?
No, I'd say it was more in the showbiz section.
Okay.
But look, it's not like if you turned it on and looked at it, you wouldn't immediately say this is a joke. You wouldn't say these two are out of their depth. As you said, Tommy Fury, not the most decorated resume, but has some schooling, comes from a great boxing family, obviously, and can handle himself in the ring. And then Jake Paul, do you want to use another cliche, like God-given power, Joe, in boxing parlance? He can punch, like. And like the MMA fighters you've mentioned, granted they're not, it's not Queensberry rules, they've been excelling in for the last couple of decades, but they've fought for a living and he's knocking them spark out. So he's got something about him there. It's just it's boxing's own fault that this little portal was allowed to be preyed upon, that it's basically been used as a vehicle for these guys who make enough money on the side to make, like Jake Paul, for example, in the fight that he lost, made $30 million just from buys. If boxing was making enough good fights in real terms, there would be no audience for these. But you look at the docket for 2023, and unfortunately the best fight on that docket fell through today with Taylor and Serrano. The heavyweight division, there's no prospect at the moment of Fury and Usyk getting it on, which we've been waiting since Lennox Lewis for an undisputed heavyweight champion, and there's no sign of that either. So it's on one hand you've got the lamentable state of the professional game in that the best won't fight the best. That's not a new issue, and this is a new issue. Whether, as in the new issue being the celeb fighters, and Eddie Hearn, for example, who's on the DAZN platform, would make the point, these kinds of events will bring eyeballs to our platform, and by dint of that, they might be inclined to stay and watch.
Are they bringing eyeballs to cards, though?
This is it. We don't have enough of a body of evidence to even bear that out. So, that
certainly on social media, yes. Maybe not television, maybe not pay-per-view. But awareness of the sport, you could say.
Yeah, what was the fight? Was it when Logan Paul, Jake's brother, boxed KSI?
I didn't realise they were brothers until very recently. I always thought Paul was the same guy.
I think that was the fight, and there were several world title fights on the undercard. I think Billy Joe Saunders fought in the undercard. I think, who was the other one? Devin Haney, who's now like serial world champion. So these guys fought on an undercard of a celeb YouTube fight, and you're like, is this really where we're at?
Yeah. I would say the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight was in some ways the beginning of this. It was a confirmation that, okay, two super famous and in their own pursuits very talented athletes, but coming together for what was a circus that was celebrity first, that actually carried enough intrigue to generate a huge amount of money. I would say that was the beginning of this movement.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. And although that, like,
did Muhammad Ali fight a wrestler?
Yeah, he fought Antonio Inoki or something like that. The Japanese wrestler.
Sylvester Stallone, Hulk Hogan, and Rocky.
Yeah, but that was based. Well, I don't know if it was based on Ali and Inoki, but that was a real fight of some kind. I don't know what rules they made about, but it was a big deal. And like Ali was, I don't know whether he was tricked into it, or tricked might be the wrong word, but kind of manipulated into it. And that's like the point I was going to make, was like there's always been an element of the circus to boxing. It's not, it's not. I suppose it comes and goes over time, but it's always been there. It's always been about the promotion, probably as much as about the sport. And what you get then, the end result of this is, as you said, this wasn't an exhibition in a way that's like two people who've never done the sport, but they're just celebrities fighting. These were actually two decent level boxers. But because of their celebrity, they're selling out a card, whereas they should be almost opening the card. It's almost a bigger problem than if it was a white-collar boxing that, took the world by storm, and it's a different thing. It's amateur, and it's, or not amateur is the wrong word, but you know what I mean, it's non-pro. Whereas these are like guys who, like, it doesn't matter that the fact that Tommy Fury isn't good enough to be a world champion. He's getting a bigger billing than Tyson Fury in some ways, for
Carl Froch
who's the
was
best
saying,
in the world.
Carl Froch was saying, like, Tommy Fury would do very well to become British champion. That's his level.
Oh, yeah.
That's where he's very well.
A British champion would
Is
be
Jake Paul going to keep fighting people now?
I would say so, yeah. I would say so. Like, I'm not, like, you raise a good point, Mick, regarding the Muhammad Ali fight, and these are time immemorial, but the key point obviously being, and we alluded to it there, these are registered fights. Like, the WBC sanctioned it, gave them rankings. Equally, the Mayweather-McGregor fight that you mentioned was Floyd Mayweather's official 50th win. So when people go back and look, 50, that's an impressive record. Who was number 50? You're like, an MMA fighter, Okay. So I think that's the conflation that I'm uneasy with. I actually have no problem with these guys going and doing this on the side. It's the problem that it's taking up real estate on boxing cards and taking up dates for actual fighters. That's my problem.
When we're watching, the 12:30 game on BT for the last few weeks, when you see their pay-per-view coming up, you want that to be Fury and Usyk or something, Taylor and Serrano. But the idea that promotion of the other sport that they're doing because their big event is these two, like, again, just as a purely interested in sport and not interested in their celebrity, and nothing fight between nobodies.
So Talk Sport had commentary of it. Yeah. And we're billing it all week.
There's money to be made from it, that's
especially for the Paul brothers, who are selling Prime and crypto on the back of being in the public eye. And Jake Paul's brother is going to be at WrestleMania next month as well.
Oh, I thought that was Jake himself. I think I did Joe's problem there. But I was going to say,
with his brother.
I was going to say about the wrestling thing is, like, they go into that because, if you're WWE or whatever, and you think, we'll get the Paul brothers on the show, that'll bring eyes to our product, and maybe then they'll stay for whoever the top star is these days. And that's the almost understandable mentality that wrestling would have. It's really sad that you're suggesting you guys are suggesting that's where boxing is. Get Jake Paul on the card, and maybe people will say, I like this boxing lark, I'll watch a real fight in a few weeks on Friday Night Fights or whatever. It's grim because obviously it's such a history, and there is still a mad interest in boxing. I think a big fight, if they made those fights that you're talking about, Ronan, the ones that they won't make, people still come to them in the droves. Like, there's still a buzz around a big fight that people will go and buy.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that'll survive on pay-per-view these days,
Yeah. Max Kellerman is a good saying. You familiar with Max Kellerman? The US broadcaster.
yeah.
But he'd have, he said, the way to tell boxing is the world's most popular sport, even if you don't know it. If you go to a street corner and there's someone playing baseball in one corner, and basketball in another corner, and football in another corner, and there's a fight in the other corner, everybody congregates around the fight. So it's your favourite sport, even if you don't know it. And that's the mixed point. Like it captivates. It's so elemental. You don't need a precursor or to know what's happening here, and it engages you probably in a way that others don't.
Did you read Joe Brawley's piece at the weekend?
I didn't actually know.
Okay, we'll come back to it. He was calling for the banning of MMA, violent and combat sports.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go along with that.
Before
I necessarily agree with
the clock, well, we should come back to it sometime. Before the clock comes against us, the Hurling League. You wanted to get into this, Will, get the ball rolling.
Yeah, it's not a good product at the moment, is how you would start that conversation. We had a weird situation where there was a break week, one game in the week just gone by, another break week, and then the prospect of some teams having only 2 weeks to prepare for the start of the championship. And therefore, I reckon for the last 2 rounds, some teams are going to taper down their interest, especially as some probably don't care that much about qualifying for the semi-finals of the league. Add in the fact that last year, Waterford went terribly in the championship after winning the league, and Cork had a dip in form and then recovered it a bit. It seems teams don't really want to give the league everything. And as a result, we've had some poor games. Loads of enthusiasm at the start. There were massive crowds, particularly the first weekend and even into the second weekend. But I think a lot of people are now looking at the product and going, not so sure. Maybe I'll wait till the championship comes around.
Because my sense of it, without watching all the games, is there were a few years there where it was incredible when it was Division 1.
Division 1 and 2, yeah, you had 8-team divisions, same as the football.
Division 1 was hyper competitive. Division 2 was a bit of a cakewalk generally for the two better teams, but there was a dogfight
Only one
to see
team, only
who could
one
go up.
team
Yeah.
got promoted,
So there was always one amazing match in Division 2.
Limerick, before their glory years, I think finished second about 5 years in a row. They couldn't get out of it.
I think Limerick and Galway won provincial championships from 1B back in that era as well.
The last year of that was 2019.
Yeah, we've gone back to 1A, 1B with a balanced structure now. And
So now there's no jeopardy. So I think COVID year, that's tricky. So 2021, 2022, and now into 2023, the Hurling League seems to be a very much unloved product.
It's a league into a league is the first problem. Semi-finals takes away really any danger for most of the teams, and the relegation is always going to be the bottom 2 from 1B against the team who comes up from Division 2.
When you think about it, like at the time, the rationale of, to use an unfair phrase, but ruining the league by changing that format post 2019, the rationale was it's too tough, it's too competitive. I think it was too good.
Yeah.
It's becoming unmissable.
If anything, it's too good.
Sorry, there's two different formats there that you mentioned. Sorry, there was the time when it was 1 and 2, and then it went to a 1A and 1B that were divided, and that was actually even better again because 1B was more competitive. There was like 4 or 5 teams in there that were competing, and then there was but the promotion and relegation was there. It was actually even a better time, and that's the one you're talking about. I was wrong. I was going back a little bit further.
Yes,
but as you said, like there was even a time back in that old days. I remember of it being 1 and 2, and say you would have a good team and poor old Limerick, and in Division 2, and I remember Cork got relegated, and I remember the discussion was like, "Oh, this league format won't see next year. There's no way Cork could possibly play in Division 2. Now, I don't know. I can't actually remember whether they did or not. But the fact is that we will even entertain these conversations consistently.
Yeah.
In GA or in hurling, I think in particular, this kind of protection of this fear of losing a county. Like they lost Offaly. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, Will, but like it's so sparse, and that's another reason the league isn't worth thing. Is that we haven't talked about the fact that the season has been condensed so much. You have the round robins; they're falling on top of each other. Why would anyone play a league before playing? Going into another league that actually matters.
It's funny on the round robin point. The first year of the round robin, if you go back and check, the Tipperary manager, name escapes me at the time, he came out after the round robin.
Michael Ryan. Yeah.
I think it was Michael Ryan. Went horribly for Tipperary, the round robin that is, and he said, maybe we were too honest, as in maybe we gave it too much during the league, and we won't make that mistake again. More fool us for taking the league seriously. Lesson learned. So the round robin has exacerbated the situation.
And we look at the team selections, that logic is definitely out there right now. You wait for a Friday now to see how competitive a game is going to be on a given weekend by the team selection. We've had mismatches and we've had teams who haven't gone full pelt at all. I thought Limerick-Galway was going to be a close game last weekend, and Galway were missing a string of players, which Joe Canning read out in League Sunday. But at the same time, I thought Galway and Limerick won't meet until the knockout stage of the championship, so therefore, why wouldn't Galway try and win like they did last year and give them a platform?
Hurling, the hurling establishment doesn't seem overly perturbed at this state of affairs.
Oh, I don't know. I've seen a lot of giving out now in the last few weeks.
From fans, I'm talking about the establishment. Like, are pundits coming out and giving out like this?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of kind of something needs to be done.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Will.
Yeah, I was listening to Dalo's podcast yesterday. He made a fair point that when it was 2 teams in the league that went straight to a league final, back then, and when there was also relegation down, which Mick mentioned for Cork, teams going into the last weekend were checking scores elsewhere to see where teams were going to go. Because now you've got 4 teams going into semi-finals and very little chance. Even if last year, if Limerick hadn't won against Offaly in the last round, they would have beaten Antrim to stay up anyway. So the top 8 counties, who are a distance ahead of the rest of the teams, really have no danger when it comes to the league whatsoever. The league is just a warm-up before they play in the championship itself. And that hurts competition. So
there's a bigger issue, though. I think there could be tweaks, and I think I'd be worried about the fact that there was a huge crowd in Limerick for Clare and Limerick when Clare didn't turn up. There was a huge crowd in Cork and Limerick for the first game. There's big crowds all around. It's like, what are they coming for? You know, exhibition games almost, you know. So you'd worry about that surviving. But there's a bigger issue here that isn't solvable in that, you know, unfortunately intercounty hurling is the same 8 teams constantly playing each other. And as long as one tournament is much bigger than the other one isn't going to be taken seriously, because you're going to meet all these teams again and you're just the same teams kind of constantly playing each other. It'd be like a Six Nations tournament of, you know, being
all
played ahead of the Six Nations.
Yeah.
those fixtures going stale may well be the thing that precipitates change in the future, because we'll get so used to these teams meeting continually during the year. Because in a weird way with COVID, you know, we went to knockout in the round robin, got a little bit of a break. It meant that wasn't happening for a couple of years by accident rather than by design. But I would love if we got a round robin like 2019, the last day where Galway got knocked out.
Sure, the round robin is brilliant. Like, I mean, but it maybe the sacrifice is the league, and that just makes the intercounty season that matters even shorter.
And are attendances going down?
I think attendances have been generally very, very good. Yeah, I think there's the long break. I think, honestly, you haven't seen some teams since June, some teams since May even.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a long time since they've been around. I think people were ready for intercounty to come back, like, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also at the same time that the Football League has been brilliant and is getting better every year and is ready to surpass the championship, I think, in a way. You know, they have to keep tweaking the championship to keep up with the league.
Especially now this year that Division 2 has a direct implication on what's going to happen in the championship later in the year in the football.
Amazing.
People are getting a bit more excited about that and what's going to happen with relegation in 2 and 3. You just don't have that with hurling.
I wouldn't like to be trying to keep the hurling pod afloat right now.
Yeah, please keep listening. Don't worry, we're going to be debating all this, and I think the first thing that has to go, semi-finals need to be gone.
Championship's around the corner anyway.
Yeah. Championship's almost here.
This is the one little sliver of the calendar where hurling people can't be like, hurling
we're superior about
it. Yeah, it's just not. It just can't. You can't stand that up whatsoever.
Even hurling people are cribbing.
Me and Will come on here giving out about it every week between now and April, so that when April comes,
oh yeah,
we
back.
can sit upon our throne.
We're back, baby. By the way, Paul did want to read out this text. Seriously, guys, he's unhappy that we haven't given enough credit to the old crossfield kick in rugby. Have one of you ever played rugby with the shape and weight of the egg ball and the shape it takes in flight, depending on the type of contact it receives from the boot? God, you guys have no idea. We've all kicked a rugby ball, Paul, in fairness.
I tried to praise a very difficult, skillful kick just before you went to the break.
I actually kind of agree, I have to say. I think you've underestimated that skill.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough, Paul. I'm reading out your text. We're taking the point. A well-placed spiral kick or a floated kick to be caught by a back three coming onto it is a gifted talent and a fine art. Try it among the 3 of us tomorrow and report back. What do you mean the 3 of us? Are you taking us out, Paul?
We're going to rugby pitch.
Who are the 2 that are being left out?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, okay, point taken. And somebody along the lines of the corridor of uncertainty, James in Cork, always thought pay-per-view was pay-per-view, as in pay-per-view, because you were signing some sort of contract to view the event. So it was a pay-per-view.
That stacks up.
I thought that as a kid, I have to say, pay-per-view, yeah. Like, well, I didn't really know what it was. It was something you would hear, pay-per-view.
Pain-per-view, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
I think we're pretty much done. A slight tangent at offtheball.com is where you can get us. Will, thank you very much.
Cheers, lads.
Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
Ronan Mullen, see you again when we see you.
Yeah, thanks, lads.
Well done.
Back, Ronan.
All right, that's us.
In the sting forever.